Hi, and thank you for joining me for another video. And friends, today I want to speak to you about beards in Judaism. Have you ever had someone tell you, hey, where's your beard? Or that according to Jewish law, all Jewish men must grow a beard. And if that's true, how long must that beard be? Well, friends, today I'm going to bring down the halachot regarding beards. So what? So that you can know how to respond. Friends, the beard, apart from the kippah, has become one of the most distinguishing marks of the Jewish male or religious Jewish males in Jewish life today. Actually, in many Orthodox communities, you will actually be looked down upon if you don't have a beard, especially if you're claiming to be a rabbi. But honestly, why such a fascination with facial hair? I mean, does it really affect us or anyone around us ethically in any way? Now, I'm not in any way criticizing those who choose to grow beards. Actually, by the simple fact that the practice is mentioned many times in the prophets and the writings, it tells us a little bit on how they at least culturally saw its significance. But regardless, the halachot regarding the beard are actually derived from two portions of the Torah that mention the prohibition of shaving and literally destroying the beard. When it states in Leviticus chapter 21 verse 5, commanding the Kohanim, you shall not shave off the corners of your beard. Or when it says in Leviticus 19 verse 27, when it gives the general command, neither shall you destroy the corners of your beard. Lo tishchit et peat zekanecha. Now, there are a few historical reasons for this prohibition, and they are mainly based on the idea that removing certain portions of one's beard was an ancient pagan mourning custom. Another reason was because it was the way the pagan clergy kept their beards. But that really does not in any way change the halakha. And I know that many who don't go according to the rulings of the Sanhedrin, i.e. Chazal, may choose to interpret these verses in their own manner. However, as a full Torah Jew who believes in the authority of the great court as the Torah instructs us in Parashat Shoftim, I am required to explain this sugya according to the halakha. So, this portion is brought down mainly in Masechet Makot, and the sugya begins explaining that the prohibition of removing the beard only applies in the 5 specific locations of the face. Locations that, by the way, are lost to us. Now, there are some who claim to have a tradition for these locations, but honestly, a tradition without a source does not hold any water. So we're typically machmir and not shaving any part of the beard. So like we said, the Gemara's basis is the 2 verses that we just read. And friends, what's interesting is that they both have a similar prohibition, but use a different verb. For example, the verse in Leviticus chapter 21 verse 5 uses the verb galach, to shave, literally with a ta'ar, with a razor. While the second one in Leviticus chapter 19 verse 27 uses the verb shachat, to destroy. And again, we're speaking about peat hazaken, the corners of the beard. Now, the Gemara goes on to explain that in order to be over on the Isser, both actions would have to be done. In other words, if you destroy the beard by using some chemical but did not shave it with a razor in any way, then there would be no Isser. Or if you removed it with something other than a razor, with how the Gemara says, misparayim, possibly scissors, there would also be no Isser. Mainly because what you would have done is clip the beard rather than shave it. Shaving, as is understood by the sugya, is literally a single blade against the skin doing the cutting. To the point that Gemara here it mentions that if someone uses what it calls melaket urchitni, as the Rambam understands it to mean different types of tweezers, he would also not be liable. Which really completely opens up the doors to even allowing electric razors to be used, which is how the majority of rabbis hold today. Of course, if they clip or pulverize the hair instead of shave it. Now, this is the source for the halakha. And you will notice that although everything we explained, there are many in the Jewish world that have chosen to do extra, and not just extra, but actually go out and condemn others who choose to go according to the basic sense of the sugya. Now, there are other positions in the Gemara that argue for the sake of the beard. So clearly, in terms of at least opinions, no one claims that Chazal was monolithic on the issue. But, my friends, the halakha is the halakha. And this is why many, in an attempt to be more stringent, actually leave orthodoxy altogether. I mean, the halakha can't say this and you, in an attempt to look different or more pious, choose to do that. I mean, we're not Karaites who try to understand the Torah's ceremonial laws outside of a ruling body. And actually, there's also another group that chooses to rely on the words of the Rishonim and even the Achronim to tell them what the Halakha really is trying to say, even though it may not be linked to the Mishnah in any way. Like, for example, many in learning the Rambam's Pasak in this issue found in Hilchot Avodah Zarah understand him to be against the complete removal of the beard, mainly because the language he uses, which does not, as the Kesef Mishnah explained, deviate from the actual Mishnah in any way. Why? Because the Rambam, teaches that if someone removes his beard completely, he is patur. In other words, he is exempt. Now, the problem is that when the notion of being patur is usually used, it is used under the auspices of patur aval asur, of exempt but still forbidden, which seems probable if one did not check the makor, the source for the halakha, which teaches us that the Rambam's patur, i.e. being fully exempt from punishment, there is just patur and not patur aval asur, or forbidden in any way. In other words, really just mutar, permitted. Now, many will try to quote other portions of the Rambam to try to justify their convictions, but honestly, we cannot paint the Rambam as someone who would deliberately go against an open and shut Gemara. Now, some may quote the Rambam when he brings down that portion in Masechet Chulin that when a man's beard is full, he may be appointed Shaliach Tzibur and even blessed Birkat Kohanim. But friends, this portion, at least we learn it in an attempt to harmonize it with what's found in Makot, which should really be understood as one's beard being full, not in terms of having actual hair, but having the follicles of the face fully developed. Because if not, how would you justify the portion in Talmud Yerushalmi that actually taught that most of Israel at that time shaved, and this was in some way a praiseworthy action? And this is shaved clearly with scissors or some other agent besides a razor, of course. Now, the big beards you'll see in the Jewish world today, the untrimmed beards, have their basis in much more recent sources like the Zohar and other mystical works that take the reason for the mitzvah to a metaphysical level that has nothing to do with halakha. And this is why groups like Chabad teach that one can never even trim the beard. Again, a halachically baseless notion, but unfortunately, it's what gets you points in the Jewish world today, and not how decent or religiously joyful you happen to be. Or also like the Abarbanel, that holds the same like the Semak Tzedek, that any trimming of the beard would fall under the Yisur of Lo Tilbash, of men dressing, or in this case, emulating women. Which honestly is not a statement I'm directly against, but rather I just believe that it should be taught as a personal opinion and not as if it was the law like it's taught today by Chabad. And friends, even the Shulchan Aruch in this portion holds like the Gemara does in terms of limiting the prohibition to the actual razor, and even mentions the other opinions that existed in the Talmud that really don't change the halakha. So again, what is the halakha? That one is allowed to shave 100% his facial hair as long as he does not use a razor. And in the same sense, for sure, there is no doubt that trimming is also not forbidding according to Jewish law. Now, another question that is usually brought up is what kind of electric razor can we use? Because some complain that some razors cut closer than others and some lift and cut. My friends, I'm of the opinion, like many in the Jewish world today, that if it's not a traditional razor against your face, then virtually any electrical razor will work, not to mention creams, etc. Now, I want to talk to you about a few other circumstances that rabbis today will try to get you not to shave in, and I really don't know why. Mainly because these circumstances do not appear in Jewish law. First is during the counting of the Omer, which is traditionally understood to be the time that the plague killed off 24,000 of Rabbi Akiva's students. Now, whether this is true or not, nowhere in halakha are we commanded to mourn for the supposed death of these students. A mourning that some even teach is almost 2 months long. I mean, 2 months of no shaving, no haircuts, marriages, music, new clothes, and on and on. When life couldn't get any bleaker, you have these rabbis coming in thinking that they know best for us, not that they have the power to change or create halachot in any way. Now, this custom was first mentioned by one of the Gaonim of the 9th century. Now, only because the Gaon mentioned it does not validate us legislating it into practice today, to the point that most ignorantly today would even classify it as a halacha, which is how it's mentioned in the Shulchan Aruch, that tells us to mourn, right? No music, no haircut, shaving till the 34th day of the Omer, of the counting of the Omer, while the Ari, the closest person we have ever had to a warlock in Judaism, says that you have to keep the beard till Shavuot, or the day before. And they go even further and even prohibit making shechianu during the Sphira, which means no new clothes. Well, really, I mean, no new anything, and worse, even prohibiting marriages. With this custom or law, that does not even appear in Shas. Not to mention that the idea of putting off a mitzvah like marriage over a baseless custom, my friends, is ridiculous. Not to mention that believing a midrash and illustrating it through mourning that insists that God killed 24,000 people just because they didn't show respect to one another is a bit ridiculous, but it's a separate issue. The next place is the 3 weeks. Again, the same rule applies, that nowhere, my friends, nowhere in Jewish law does it command us to mourn for 3 weeks. Actually, the mourning period, according to Halakha, is just reserved for the last week of the 9 days, and it's still not complete mourning. In other words, it's also limited to certain things. And I have to mention that this is an Ashkenazi minhag that everyone pretty much adopted, and again, is baseless in halakha, and in my opinion, should not be followed unless you enjoy physical mourning for no halachic reason. And why do I say it's a baseless halakha? Again, my friends, because it does not appear in the Mishnah or any other halachic source text. For more information on everything Jewish, please visit doordea.com. Thank you.